Amy Foster, and Steve Galvin. Alex, if you'd like to come up and give your opening remarks, 5 minutes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Let's do this. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. Hi, I'm Alex Dunsing, and I'm running for City Council on District 8. And I'd just like to kind of introduce you to myself and to my campaign by talking a little bit about my work as a college professor and the kinds of things that I did over at SBC and at USF. When I was a college professor, I first of all, in the classroom, I was very good at bringing people from all different kinds of backgrounds together to listen to each other, to learn from each other, to create together. And that was a very important thing, and it's one of the things that I really like to do for St. Pete. The other thing that I did, and I'd like to really work to do this for all of you, is to listen to each and every one of you, to know what your concerns are, to know what your problems are. Students would come up to me and they would say, "Well, I'm having problems writing a resume." I'm like, "Okay, I'll help you write a resume. Come on over. Let's do that." Someone else would say, "I'm having problems with financial aid." Well, one of the things I would do with those students is like, "Don't worry, I'm a professor here. Let's walk over to financial aid." I walk them over there and said, "Hi, I'm Alex Dunsing, professor. I hope when I become elected to City Council, I hope to be able to do that for the people of St. Pete. When they're having problems and when they need someone on their side, I hope to be able to say, 'Hi, I'm Alex Dunsing. I'm a city councilman, and I'd like you to help my friend right here.' That's what I want to do for each and every one of you. My approach to running for office is to walk a beat, and which is something that I intend to do as I continue as a city council person. I want to. I've been knocking on doors. I was like, "What's important to you? Let's have the big discussions. What are your needs?" Today I went over to the 49th Street pub, and they're like, "Well," I was like, "Do you have a Facebook page?" No. I was like, "Okay, I'll come over here that Friday, and we'll make you a Facebook page." The other day, I was talking to the people over at SUAC. They're like, "We need waste wood." One of the businesses here, Premium Leisure, they have tons of waste wood. So I partnered the waste wood with SUAC. So that's the kind of thing I'm going to do. Is I'm going to go walk around, listen to what you need, listen to what your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations are, and connect them with others. I'd like to lastly invite you all to I'm having a big event. We're bringing together local community, local artists, local business, local food. It's this Saturday at 7 o'clock till late. Come and experience it. It's a lot of what I've done is brought a lot of people together from all walks of life, because tell me if I'm wrong. Is it just me, or is St. Pete on the cusp of greatness? Something's really happening here, and I want to be the catalyst that brings it to the next level. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I'm Alex Dunsing for City Council, District 8.
Our next candidate for City Council District 8 is Robert Davis.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight and braving the weather we had. I was watching. We had 3 hours of rain pouring down, and it's great to see everybody excited here, braving the elements. That'll turn a lot of people off at coming to events. Do you believe that your city council member should have a vast amount of governmental experience and service within the neighborhood associations?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you excited like I am about the vibrancy of the downtown, and would you like to see it spread out through the rest of the district?
Yeah.
Do you like feeling safe in your neighborhood? Yes. One of those things I want to work on is I want to fight to protect that we have the neighborhood community police officer program, because when I was neighborhood president over at Crescent Heights, we developed a relationship with our community police officer, and he was very helpful in having us solve a lot of the different problems within the neighborhood, things that you wouldn't even imagine. Like one of the motels had pedophiles that were congregating there, and he was able to allay our fears about it. and that was about when they started posting that sort of thing on the web. People were getting worried they were seeing it on the web, and he told us what he did, what he would do with that situation. Later on, the city helped us out even more when they built a bank where that motel was. So we got rid of that motel, rather serendipitously. But I worked a lot with the community police officer, and he came to all of our meetings over at Crescent Heights. I served on their board for 3 years before later on we moved to the Central Oak Park neighborhood where my wife and I and kids now reside. The other thing that I want to work on, and I walk around my neighborhoods and I see a lot of vacant houses that have happened because I suppose a lot of people have been unemployed. I see a lot of people looking for work. And one of my central tenets is I'm going to work on getting a jobs program. I talked to Steve a little bit about it at one of our 3 budget meetings that we had, the budget summons, which I attended all 3 of those and spoke at each one of those. And one of the models I've been looking at really captured my interest was the Brooksfield one. It's Brooksfield, Florida. It was started with a Department of Labor grant. And what they did is they took Department of Labor statistics and they figured out they needed 500 welders in the state of Florida. And they matched up, they found applicants to apply for the training that they were going to give, and they made agreements with those companies. And as soon as those applicants got the training that they needed, they got a job. I love that program. I wish it was there when I was in college, because when I got my 4-year degree at Drake University in political science, they said, here's an interview class, here's how you do a resume, good luck, And that year back in '82, it was a really bad year as well for looking for work. I think there was 4 employers that came to our campus that year. And Drake's kind of on the comparable with the Eckerd's College as far as tuitions go. It's a very good private school with about 5,000 applicants. And I got my political science degree, and I worked on my journalism, and I was out looking for work like everybody else. So I would like to see a Brooksfield model, because that's a direct influx of things. So I talked to the program manager over there, and I go, how can we get something like that here? And I'm still working on the nuts and bolts on that. When I do get some more information, I'll be willing to share it with Steve and other council members so we can get that program here. I want to see 500 welders or CPL operators or cooking school or something. There's jobs to be had out here. We have lots of needs in this community. So those are the 2 big things that I'm working on already as your council member. What sets me apart from the rest of my opponents in the 8th District is I have a vast amount of governmental experience, and I'll share with you a little bit about what I've been doing. For the last 7 years, I've worked for the city of St. Petersburg at the library there. I'm also a union steward and a member of the SEIU union. As a union steward, I've been working with employees, work through some of their issues that they have that come up from time to time when you're working for a big city like ours. And the other 5 years earlier, I was working for the state of Florida at the health department in the WIC program. And these are 2 very successful programs. They're very good models for what other programs could be doing because they do more with less. They get a lot done with very little resources. The WIC program is, of course, financed by the federal government, but it's a state's administered. And it's a very good program. There's not a lot of red tape and paperwork you have to go through. And it's very proactive, like Renee was talking about what we do for our children. That's a very good program because it helps with nutrition for pregnant moms and for children 5 years or younger. And you can apply for that program, and one of the things you show proof of the wages that you earn. And to me, that's a very good indicator of what your social economic condition is. That should be it, right? Just show them what you're earning, and that kind of tells you what's going on, at home and what you're able to provide your kids. And every parent wants to provide as much as they can for the kids. What this does is it front loads the problem because it makes sure those kids get proper nutrition. So when they go to school, they're not hungry. If you look at United Nations studies, hungry kids don't learn as well, as other ones because they need that food. They need a shelter. They need a place to live. Am I done?
You're done.
I already used 5 minutes? Oh.
More than 6.
Oh, well, thank you for giving me that extra minute. I want to make sure you vote for Robert J. Davis on August 27th. If you have any questions, my campaign manager wife is in the back there, Jo, and she has some brochures if you'd like to volunteer for our effort. Thank you.
Appreciate it. My next candidate for City Council for District 8 is Amy Foster.
So good evening. I'm Amy Foster, and I'm running for City Council in District 8 because I love St. Petersburg and I have the skills we need to meet our city's goals. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself, but let's get one thing straight first. There may be one Foster running this race that you might not be happy with, but I'm the Foster that you should like. So let's just talk a little bit about my background. I currently work for a nonprofit where I manage 39 states. We build public-private partnerships for workforce development issues, and the issue that I'm focused on right now is to increase the number of girls in science, technology, engineering, and math. Prior to that, I worked for Girl Scouts of West Central Florida for 12 years, and I was the Director of Girl and Adult Leadership Development there. All of my work in volunteerism has been focused on helping people and solving problems, and that's what I'll do as your next City Council member. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've heard on the trail, and I'm sure that all of you are going to agree with this. One of the things I've heard from almost everybody is that we all want the same things. We want our family, friends, and neighbors to be healthy, happy, and successful. And I think there are three key issues for our city to help address that. One is building safer neighborhoods. Two is creating jobs and developing our workforce. And three is preparing our next generation of leaders. And tonight I'm going to focus on one of those issues. And I had no idea that Renee and Steve were going to talk about this tonight, but I'm glad that they did because I'm going to follow up on it. I've had one opponent imply a little bit that City Council doesn't really have anything to do with education, and so I want to talk about why education is important. It's not only the right thing to do for our city, it's imperative. And if any of you attended the last mayor's forum, every single one of those candidates spoke about why education is important. Let's talk about if we don't have an educated workforce, we can't attract businesses to our city. If we do not have schools that are performing well, families will not see our city as a place to live. It is important for us to partner with our school board and our local industries, as Renee talked about, but more importantly, we have the control of the budget. And so some of those ways that I think City Council can really have a huge impact is in out-of-school time opportunities. And so let's talk about that for a minute. Research shows that youth involved in out-of-school time opportunities are less likely to smoke, less likely to use drugs, less likely to have teen pregnancy, and more likely to have important role models in their life. Another thing that we know about youth involved in out-of-school time opportunities is that their achievement gap is lessened. One of the things that Renee talked about was the Summer Bridge program. Underrepresented youth have a wider achievement gap that is lessened when they have opportunities for summer internship programs, summer employment programs, and summer camp opportunities. And I think this is key to solving many of the problems that we see in our city. And I think we've got to get this right. We were asked to address 4 questions tonight, so I'm going to quickly do that. The first question was the peer. Let's be real clear. The voters don't want politicians making that decision for them. So let's let the voters vote. I personally will be voting no on the referendum, but that's not what's important. What's important is that the voters will have their vote and then hopefully we'll move forward together because there are lots of important issues facing our city. The second question was about the Rays. The Rays have a contract. A lot of people made sacrifices for that stadium to be built. Let's have them honor that contract and hopefully transit will be a game changer. The third question was what efficiencies do you think we can accomplish in our city? I think technology and incorporating more of it is really important for creating city efficiencies, but one idea for streamlining that I would have is our billing and collection departments. We have 6 different departments, they're all doing the same function. Let's streamline that. And then lastly, the question was why you can and will win. I have one word for that, We've had more. Our message is resonating more with voters. We've had more events, more endorsements, more phone banks, and we have more volunteers to keep that momentum going, and I think it's likely that we have more donors as well. So thank you. I'm Amy Foster. I'm asking for your vote on August 27th, and things are going to get better now because together we can make great things happen.
Democratic candidate for City Council District 8 is Steve Galvin.
Thanks for coming out and braving the rain here tonight. My name's Steve Galvin. I'm running for the ever popular District 8 seat in City Council. And I believe that St. Petersburg is at a pivotal point in its history. And it's time for us to make some hard decisions. And it's going to take a creative experience and leadership to move us forward in the right direction. And I am that candidate. This is my first time running. And, you know, in all of these forums, I hear the same things. Everybody wants less crime, jobs, and safe neighborhoods. Well, who doesn't? That's what being a community is. But I'm the only candidate who has experience in all of those areas. I've dealt with crime in my neighborhood. I've stopped burglaries in my neighborhood. I've been a victim of burglary. I've gone to court, and I've made sure these people went to jail. So I've dealt with crime. I've had drug dealers 3 doors down from me openly dealing in the street. We put a stop to that. Jobs. I've been a small business owner my whole life. I'm the only one up here who's actually employed anyone. You know, that means paying them out of your own till from your business. So I understand what it takes to create jobs. I have a tremendous background in retail. One of my pet projects is 22nd Avenue North here in the district. I've been in contact. They've kind of cobbled together a coalition, calling it Home Improvement Row. I want to get the city involved. I want to do there what we did in the Grand Central District and get a cohesive look, some signage, some landscaping, and really create another zone in the city this is where you go. If you're going to work on your house, you need any remodeling materials, this is the place to go. And I think that identity should be clear. We got the brownfield designation there for the last lot across from Mazzaro's, and there's a developer already in line ready to put businesses. He's already got businesses lined up to move in there. As far as the 4 questions go, it's amazing to me when I get out and I canvass the neighbors how many people ask where I stand on the lens. Personally, I'd rather stand on the pier. You know, Rick Baker, he put that money together. And he put that money together to refurbish the pier, not to tear it down. So let's do that. There are plans in place, plans exist to actually create a more modern version of what we have of the pier within the budget that we have to work with. I mean, some of the numbers that are being thrown out there are kind of ridiculous. They include, you know, widening the approach to another 50 feet wider than it already is, and there's no reason to do that. There's no reason cars should be parking on the approach. I could spend 20 minutes on the pier, but I'll move on. The raise. I agree with Amy. The deal is a deal. The city went to a tremendous expense and effort to create the raise in the first place. They built the stadium. Teams said they would come if we built the stadium, but they used that to leverage the towns that they were in to get them to build a new stadium there. We went to Major League Baseball. They said no. We sued Major League Baseball and finally got a team. So we own the Devil Rays. They have a contract till 27, and I believe that with the implementation of Greenlight Pinellas and get our transportation system to be what it should be, including a light rail component to Tampa. I mean, wouldn't it be great to be able to take a train to the airport? We're one of the only metropolitan areas in the country where you can't take a train to the airport. It's time to step up and be there. Inversely, Tampa fans will be able to get on that train and come to St. Petersburg, have a stop at the Trop, and enjoy the game. So my wife and I, we volunteered at the Tropicana for 2 seasons, and I'm telling you, it depends on the team. We've seen that place packed, and we've seen the place empty, and it boils down to one thing, and it's performance. And when the team is doing well, the people go. It's not the facility's fault. But I'd like to facilitate it, make it easier for people to get there via the Greenlight Pinellas plan, and I think it's a lot more efficient way to get people to and from the game. City services. Actually, I think the mayor's done a pretty good job of streamlining things in the last few years. Nobody's had, my wife works for the city, she hasn't had a raise in 5 years. We've consolidated services, but one thing I would like to do is, I've lived in a number of places in the country, and this is the only place I've ever lived where they pick up your trash twice a week. To me, that seems a little redundant. I would propose that we pick up trash once a week and do recycling the second time. Have the city get involved in curbside recycling instead of outsourcing it to some other company. I mean, it's to me, that's just sort of a no-brainer. And as far as my campaign is concerned, I have a professional, experienced manager, consultant with a track record of winning municipal elections. I've got some great volunteers from age 19 to 90 that'll work in my campaign. But the most important reason why my campaign will succeed is that we have the best candidate. So I'd appreciate your support and your vote. Steve Galvin, City Council District 8. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Steve Galvin. Okay, now I'm going to read off some questions that were posed by you guys, the audience, and I'm going to ask the candidates, please keep it to 1 minute to be fair to everybody. Jesse is going to be the timekeeper, so he will hold up the phone. If you can't see it, he'll just wave you when you got about 10 seconds left, and we'll go from there. It's not a chance to necessarily address another candidate one-on-one, and we'll go from there, so we'll see how it goes. First question for Mr. Dunsing. Again, this is from the crowd. Our city is currently moving towards two goals, profitability and sustainability. We see this trend with current proposals to alter our waste treatment infrastructure and generate compressed natural gas with biodigesters at waste facilities. That's a mouthful. Do you support renewable fuel production in St. Pete? And will you support future initiatives which focus on local energy production? 1 minute.
Yes.
Mr. Davis, that might be the easiest question of the night.
Yes. Alex left me a little extra time, but so I'll borrow from him. But anyway, I believe in renewable energy sources. I think we should be doing solar energy a lot bigger than we are too, making solar panels. I mean, I've lived in Germany, and they don't have near as much sun as we do, and they're doing way better than we are as far as solar panel production. So I think we should definitely get involved in that game. We are the Sunshine State, right?
Thank you. Ms. Foster, again, the question. Do you support renewable fuel production in St. Pete, and will you support future initiatives which focus on local energy production?
Yes, let's live up to being a green city.
There you go.
I think I'm going to have to say yes on this one. And I got to agree with Robert on the solar. I mean, it's really a sin that we as the Sunshine State aren't at the leading edge of solar implementation. Thanks.
Our next question is kind of relevant at this point, and Mr. Davis, you'll get to go first. What would you do to reduce flooding in our streets?
I'm glad you asked that one because I work over at Main Library and our parking lot floods a lot. So I would like us to do, better work with the sewer system. I understand we're just a little bit above sea level, so part of that problem is that we're just above the ocean. But I would like to see some, work done in that area too. They did some work over at the library, but it kind of helps, a little bit, but not a lot. So I'd like to see more done with that particular thing. I got a vested interest in that one, unless I can have a boat to get out,
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Gonna need one if we ever have a hurricane hit here too. That's gonna be a big problem.
Ms. Foster?
Well, I'll be honest, this has not come up until Darden Rice actually brought it up this weekend. There definitely is some drainage problems that have been noticed over the last week, and I'll have to do some more exploration around that, but I think with my collaboration skills, I'll work with the various city departments to make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers.
Yeah, unless we have some way of elevating the city a little bit higher, I think we're going to have to deal with our drains and make sure that everything is kept clear and clean and keep on it.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Mr. Johnson?
I've talked to, one of my friends is in water management, and it is a big problem. We do have some very old infrastructure, and I can assure you that one of my first priorities is to make sure that the infrastructure that we have is strong. Moreover, to make sure that the people who run our infrastructure are well compensated, and I would like to say equal work, equal pay. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Foster, you'll get to answer this one first. So much time, energy, and concern has been spent on the lens. What would you do about these other issues, such as drugs, gangs, and the future of our youth and the safety of our citizens? One minute.
And world peace.
Well, I think that I already addressed some of that. My background's in youth development, and I think it's one of the most important things we can do. Certainly we have to collaborate with the nonprofits that are already working to address these issues. We have to work with our businesses who have a vested interest in this. We have to work with our school board. So I think that's an important part of it. I think it's also about working with our officers to address the issues, but prevention is way more important than intervention. We can save dollars by preventing those issues in the first place. And those out-of-school time programs that I talked about earlier, we know that there are less public safety issues when youth are involved in those from 3 to 6 p.m.
Yeah, to deal with our drug and crime issue, I mean, part of the element there is jobs. It needs to be available to have, an actual job and not a situation where it's easier to make a good living selling drugs than go into a job. Again, with the Green Light Pinellas will enable people to have a wider area to look for employment. I also agree that education is highly important. The unions have been putting together an apprenticeship program, which I'm very excited about. I'm basically a product of that. I learned how to do many things when I was young. I learned how to weld in high school. I learned how to work a metal lathe. I learned how to wire a home when I was in high school. And I think that having alternative education, not everybody's designed to go to college. It isn't always the right path for someone. And there's a lot of great occupations out there where you can make an excellent living as an electrician, as a plumber, as a machinist. I think that we really need to look at some of our educational alternatives other than sending kids to college. Thanks.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. What would you do about the issues of drugs, gangs, and the future of our youth and the safety of our citizens?
Okay, thank you. As you know, I'm a big supporter of the community police officer program in the cities, and that puts a face on the law enforcement for the neighborhoods, and they work together with the community neighborhood associations. Also, I'd like to see some more crime watch programs. I think those are really a big help too. You get neighbors out there looking around, and it helps put a stop to some illegal activities because they can call the non-emergency number for the police department. Also, one of the things too is that Steve mentioned about the career paths of our students. I'd like to see some more paths, for them to operate on, like on doing trades as an option. If you don't really feel like you're a 4-year college student, you should have some trade options too. I think we should be looking at those kind of things as ways to give our young more opportunities.
Thank you.
After 9/11, I was in New York, and I would volunteer taught at the High School of Economics and Finance. I was a poetry teacher, and the program coordinator came up to me one day and said, "You know that person was in gangs and he was really rough, and I don't know what you did to him, but he's changed his life around." And I'll tell you what can change life around for people is one, the arts. We have a really strong arts community here, and I'll personally go around all throughout, as I have been, go throughout the town, and let people of all ages know that there are ways to express yourselves positively, with arts, with music, with poetry. The other thing is just once again to go around and letting people of all kinds know that they're valued, that they're special. You are all special. I think just understanding that can change lives around. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Gavin, this is your question. What is your position on red light cameras? If you would get rid of them, where would you try to make up their portion of the $2.5 million budget for traffic and parking fines in 1 minute?
Red light cameras, have you got one of those hot button issues? I think that the idea of red light cameras was probably not a bad one. I think the implementation has been an abysmal failure. I think the inconsistencies in yellow light timing on some of these intersections, the arbitrary right turn on red tickets, the burdensome appeals process and costly if you don't prevail, it's really has been very poorly implemented. The idea is a good one. I mean, it's important that we keep intersections safe, and people, you see people run red lights all the time in the city. But I believe that it is so, at this point, so stigmatized, and I think it's just, they just have to go away.
Alex? Yeah, I'm trying to keep it, there you go. We'll go in order, no problem.
I think with the red light cameras, I think that's a two-part problem. One, first of all, no one should be running red lights. I think we can all pretty much agree, except there are some times when, of course, you might be behind a truck. There are extenuating circumstances. I think what's the problem is largely to do with the judicial end, the appeals part of the red light camera issue. You have to pay extra fines to if you try to appeal them and lose, you can get points on your license if you lose. So I think that the appeals process needs to be made fair, and we do really need to look very closely into making sure that the sequences of all lights are the same, that the yellow light times are proper. I would personally vote as it stands to get rid of the contract, because as it stands, I don't think it's making the road safer. And particularly for, I spoke to a motorcyclist the other day, and if you're on a motorcycle and you have to stop short and someone runs into you, that could be the end of you. So I'm very hesitant on that. Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
I wish I had more than a minute to talk about this one, because I've been looking into this issue, and it's another example of our city council coming up with an incomplete program. They didn't really even look at how the courts would process the appeals procedure. They probably didn't even talk to the circuit clerk, because that was one of the problems that came up with early on. I think we need to look at these programs and come up with more complete solutions for them. If it's about safety, then that's a good thing. You know, we shouldn't be running red lights. But I've been looking at, like, Kenneth City's had some problems recently because they haven't come up with their appeals process, and I think they have 60 days to get that appeals process in place in order for them to operate their traffic cameras. And I think it's a very expensive program. I mean, I'm looking into what the cost is as opposed to what we're bringing in, and I think it's a very incomplete program. It's something they shouldn't have jumped in before they had everything all T's crossed and the I's dotted. And that's one thing I would be looking at. I'd be looking at the complete program before I jump in to something like this.
Ms. Foster?
I think this is one thing we all agree on. I would vote to end the red light cameras, and as for where I'd find the other $2.5 million, I'd have to look at the budget to figure that out, but I can write a grant to find $2.5 million if I need to, so that's what I do.
Next question is for Mr. Dunsing. It's a couple parts, so I'll read them again if you guys need me to. How long have you lived in the district you're running in, and do you own a home there? And then what life experience drove you to enter the race?
I've lived in my house for about 5 years, and I rent it. And it was about education. It was really changing people's lives in education, going around and helping, being a helper to students. That is an experience that I want to do for you. I want to be your servant. I want to be your helper. Thank you.
my wife and I moved into our current house in the Central Oak Parks neighborhood about 5 years ago. And we have 2 children and 2 dogs and a cat. If only they could vote, you know, that would help. But anyway, one of the things that drove me to decide to run for the election is twofold. Basically, Jeff Danner had term limits, so he's out, you know, out of the race. The other thing is that if you read the Tampa Bay Times article, it kind of gave a good synopsis of why I got in. About 3 years ago, I started looking at what the city council was doing, and they wanted to increase their revenue, and they wanted to bring in those businesses that were going out to Ybor City late at night. So they extended the hours for the closing from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. And I know from the studies that I've looked at over the years that if you're going to increase that time, you're going to increase the amount of problems that you're going to have. The nuisance crimes that you have, like DUIs, are going to go up on the rise. You're going to have fights. Recently, we had a...
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I got to cut you short. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
1 minute.
If you want a more complete answer, I'll talk to me later.
Thank you.
I lived in St. Petersburg for approximately 12 years. I previously owned a home. I don't currently because it doesn't fit with my lifestyle. That's very busy. And the life experience that caused me to choose to jump into this race is twofold. I currently, again, work to encourage girls to pursue non-traditional careers, and I felt like it was really important to lead by example. And then secondly, it was really about experience. I watched City Council for the last couple of years as they made decisions and felt like they were making decisions based on just their districts and without a really systemic plan to change the entire city and what was needed as a full plan for our city. And I felt like my consensus building skills and collaboration skills would be really helpful in that area.
I've lived in St. Petersburg for 10 years, and between my wife and I, we own 4 homes. We started off with 1, and I spent years rebuilding this house. And about the time I got done, the economy kind of tanked, and our neighborhood really got ugly. We ended up with 7 empty houses on our block. Over a period of a couple of years, we bought 3 of them, and I've completely restored them. I've got great families living in them now, and I just want to take this commitment to the city, citywide. You know, I love living here, and this kind of activity is contagious, and everybody wants to live in a nice, safe neighborhood. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Davis, this is your question. What steps would you take to lure business to St. Pete, and what types of businesses would you like to see open a new shop or relocate here? 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. I will keep to that. Basically, some of the things I'd like to do to lure businesses into the area is to support our local education system. That's one of the things the polls look at. You look at the companies that want to move here. They want a good, strong education system. And as a former teacher, I believe in supporting the teachers any way we can. Whether it's giving them print cartridges so they can make more copies if the state doesn't fund them adequately. And things like that. You know, help your teachers, support those teachers, because they're the ones that are educating your students, your children, and they make a big difference in our community. That's the biggest thing I would look, support education.
Thank you. Ms. Foster?
I think we need to build on our strengths. What's most important is that we bring higher wage jobs to our community. Our housing is currently increasing at 10% and our income is not growing with the same pace. So it's really important that we look at tech and innovation startups, financial service businesses, things like that. Some of the ways I think that we can do that, we might have to provide some incentives, but we need to expand our economic development programs. We're not spending enough money in that area to attract businesses and to really sell the strengths of our city.
I think it's important we invite the right kind of companies and businesses to be here in St. Petersburg. I'd like to work with our Chamber of Commerce, perhaps use them as a lobbying firm for our city to help draw some new businesses in here. As I mentioned earlier, I've got my pet project at 22nd Avenue North to build some more retail there. Our new CRA of the 34th Street corridor, I think, has a tremendous potential to build a lot of businesses and really change the makeup of that central corridor of St. Petersburg. Thanks.
Good green jobs is the kinds of jobs I like to bring. One, to do that, I think we really need to work on our public transportation. People are not going to want to have businesses here if their employees can't get to work. The other thing is, once again, my approach is networking. I'll go out and I'll find out who people know, who people might have a business to bring down here, and I'll call them personally. I'll say, come on down to St. Pete. We have a great art scene. We have a great urban agriculture scene. We have great community going on here. Come on down. This is a great place. Not to mention we have great beaches. So come on down.
Thank you. Mrs. Foster, I believe this is your question. And this has come up a little bit, a lot of questions about it. What's your position on curbside recycling, and would you try to implement it full-time in St. Pete? Why not?
I think it's important that we have recycling. It goes along with our Green City program. I know that a lot of voters that I've talked to would like it to be a single stream program. And I think we need to do some more exploration and see what the return on investment can be to make sure that we can make money off of. A lot of people are saying that they don't want to pay the $3, but we can make money off of what happens whenever you recycle those waste materials. So that's what I'd like us to look more into.
Well, I did mention this earlier. I think that it's important that the city take over the recycling for the same reasons you said. There's value in the plastics and the glass and the newspapers, and I think that the value of those raw materials could help offset the cost of the collection. So I think it's something that the city should be handling versus outsourcing it. Thank you.
Yes, I think we should ultimately work towards recycling, universal curbside recycling, although it is important to note that, one, we do have universal recycling of aluminum cans here in the city. You just put them out and say free cans, they will be gone. I think we need to look at some alternative methodologies of getting things recycled. One of the things I think we can do is put bumper stickers on the dumpsters that say use recycle. You got something useful, bring it to a thrift store. The other thing is, at Pride Parade, I was amazed. There was someone who makes flooring using recycled plastic bottles. So there's a lot of ways that we can reuse the waste. Thank you.
I support curbside recycling. The current program that the mayor implemented is working fairly well, but what I'm disturbed by is the lack of other people that have joined on board. In our neighborhood, there is very few, very sparsely things. So I would like to talk to more neighbors and find out what it is that they're looking for, so we can match up, their wants and desires with what we can do. I think there wasn't enough of that done initially to find out what it is. Everybody's unique. Also, I look at other model programs, like the one in Sarasota has been operating for years, and they do a really good job. I'd like to see some dumpsters, maybe, that people could bring their recyclables to, maybe more of them, than we already have. Those are the things that I'd be looking at.
Thank you very much. And that was the last question that we're going to ask of our candidates. I'm going to do something I hadn't planned on. I'm going to give each of the candidates 1 minute as their final push. Mr. Galvin, if you'd like to start, you get 1 minute of closing remarks.
Oh, so no question?
No, sir.
Okay. The reason I'm running is my experience. I have a long background in building, and that's a big part of what City Council deals with. And with Jeff Danner terming out, there won't be anybody left on City Council who has the experience and a background in construction and building. I've been a member of St. Pete Preservation for 6 years. I've restored an 86-year-old home and 3 other homes already here in the neighborhood, and I think it's important that somebody on council has those skills. So that's a unique background that I bring to it, plus my years as a small business owner. I think I'm the right person for this job. Thank you.
started off tonight by saying that I ran for city council because I have the skills we need to meet our city's goals. And so I just will follow up with talking a little bit about that. We need someone with the skills to bring people together and build consensus and move us forward. And I think what Mr. Galvin said is important, but Mr. Danner has endorsed myself, and so I think that that is not as important as some of the other skills that are needed in order to move the city forward.
Thank you.
I'll keep it to a minute. I want you to, when you go to the polls and you're looking at the candidates, look at the amount of government experience that the individuals have. Just to briefly summarize, I've had 7 years working with the city of St. Pete. I was union steward. 5 years before that, I worked for the state of Florida in another very successful program, the WIC program. Previous to that, I had a bachelor's of arts in political science from Drake University. I've been studying a lot of these issues, and I would bring to you more complete solutions to our problems. Every day I go out there and I talk to somebody and maybe help them get their back alley repaved or exotic birds removed. There's some issues that come up day to day as a city councilman that that are not as exotic and flamboyant as the Lens or the Rays, the drama surrounding those issues. Day to day, you have city services that you want to see provided, and I think I can deliver on those issues for you today.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
I think you know that I'm here because I appreciate you and I want to serve you. And I want to thank you all for coming out here in the rain, and that's all. I'll end on some bit of Shakespeare. A long time ago the world begun with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain. But that's all one, my speech is done, and I'll aim to please